Recording now. All right. So let's get this PowerPoint going. I'm no technical whiz, so please bear with me. Let's share my screen. And we should be ready to go. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see at least one of these screens. So the title of today's presentation are the 3 moves that you must master to be healthy. So for those people on here that already work with me, welcome. Those people are on here who stumbled across an ad and said, who is this guy and what's he talking about? Welcome. And people who have really nothing to do on Wednesday night but listen to me talk about these moves, also welcome. So for those who have worked with me, this information should be relatively familiar. If it's not, I certainly haven't done my job of educating you. So the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to teach you each one of the most important functional movements, in my opinion, of the human body. Teach you why each one is important, and more importantly, teach you some of the strategies to improve your functional movement. So who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, my name is Dr. Kevin McGovern. I am a physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for 28 years. This is my 28th year of practice. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning coach. And I am the owner of Perfect Motion Sports Therapy in Acton, Massachusetts. And I help active adults recover from injury and stay healthy without medications, surgery, MRIs, and all the other malarkey that goes along with it. So today, what we're going to cover is scapular depression, the squat, walking, and how these movements apply to your daily life, and how a lack of mastery of these movements results in imminent injury. So the first pillar of movement is scapular depression. For those of you who have worked with me, who've seen my social media, I'm constantly hammering home on what scapular depression is. Well, I didn't invent it. I wish I did, but it is actually a law of kinesiology. This is one of these pillars of movement that is actually a law. And it really is called the scapulohumeral rhythm. Say that 5 times fast, or SHR for short. And that is essentially how the shoulder blade moves in relation to the shoulder, the arm, your humerus, okay? Your shoulder is this amazing joint, which we have tons of movement, okay, which is great. However, it's really the only joint where your humerus bone, your upper arm bone, is attached to this other bone, your shoulder blade, which is really attached to nothing, all right? There's only one ligamentous attachment of our shoulder blade. That's to the front. That's in our collarbone area. But other than that, there's no ligament attachment. The basic definition of a joint are 2 bones coming together that has ligaments, tendons, a joint capsule. The shoulder is considered a joint, but really doesn't have any of those basic kinesiological or fundamental anatomy and physiological principles. Okay. Now, the scapular depression is combated with what everyone has, scapular elevation. Okay. And that is our upper trap. That muscle is attached, as we all know, pretty much from our ear to the top of our shoulder. That's the muscle. You say, oh, I've got all this tension, and that is our upper trap. And by definition, that's an over-facilitated muscle. And what does that mean? This Russian therapist, Yanda, way back when, described over-facilitated muscles, and he he identified really three in the body, one being the upper traps, the second being the sternocleidomastoid, that's that big muscle here on the side of my neck, and the long paraspinal muscles of our back. He identified those as over facilitated. And what he meant by that is they are on all day long, holding us up. They're essentially our postural muscles. So think of a dimmer switch in your dining room, that switch is really all the way up at the top, just in normal day-to-day movement. Okay, so this scapulohumeral rhythm, again, say that 5 times fast, has a 3-to-2 or 1-to-1 ratio, depending on what periodical or what research you read. Now, what the heck does that mean to you? Well, think of the shoulder blade relation to the arm as a seesaw, okay? So for every 3 degrees that my arm elevates, that shoulder blade should depress too. And we want the big guy to be on the scapular side of the seesaw. So we want that movement down first as the shoulder comes up. Like I said, that is a law. You can look that up and you can see how that scapulohumeral rhythm is at a 3-to-2 or 1-to-1 ratio, depending on what you look at. Now, we're shrugging all day long. We're in front of the computer shrugging. We're probably shrugging now watching this Zoom video. We're in front of our phone shrugging. We're just shrugging, okay? And that shrug is the root of all evil when we talk about the upper extremity. And that movement, so essentially as we are, I'll do a test where I can just look at someone shrugs first, nothing else after that is going to be correct, right? So that shrug movement is 180 degrees opposite of what should be happening. It's kind of like driving your car forward in reverse. So when we have that poor movement, we could have neck pain for sure, headaches, TMJ, shoulder impingement. Everyone knows what that is. They kind of lift their shoulder and it kind of gets stuck. That's a shoulder impingement. TOS, which stands for thoracic outlet syndrome, that has been very popular recently in the sporting world, especially with baseball pitchers, literally getting ribs removed to stop thoracic outlet syndrome. So if anyone has numbness or tingling in the last 3 fingers of their hand, their kind of middle ring and pinky, that's a sign of thoracic outlet syndrome. And what that is that the nerve, artery, and vein that come out of our neck, right where that sternocleidomastoid is, comes underneath our collarbone, okay, and down our arm. When that gets compressed by shrugging, we're going to get numbness in our hands. That is a very serious injury or a very serious issue that needs to be taken care of. But the root cause of that is that a lack of scapular depression. So our first pillar of movement is scapular depression. So I have went back in the archives. This is actually my old practice that I sold way back when. So here is a test of what I do is it's called my shoulder coordination test of what scapular depression is. And I picked this video because you can see this gentleman is in very good shape and has some good musculature of his shoulder blade. So as I begin to roll this, all right, so when he moves his hands away from his side, I hope this is a good bandwidth on this Zoom. Okay, immediately right now, if you look at his chain on his neck, right below that, you're going to see he start to define right where his upper traps are. So as he opens his hand towards the wall, okay, his arm now forearm is in supination, which is carry sup. Supination is a promoter of scapular depression, right? So before his hands were kind of neutral. So as he opens his hands very slightly, you can see the lower part of his shoulder blades kind of engage. All right. Pronation, which we're always in, driving a car like this, that is a promoter of upper trap involvement. So we don't want to get into that movement. So I have people start off in this supinated movement. And then we're really just doing the arm motion here of a jumping jack. And immediately you're going to see, right as that guy in the green shirt comes in the picture there, he is really moving this. His shoulders are certainly not depressing, right? They're elevating, right? Especially right there. He's in full muscle contraction of that upper trap. His shoulder blades actually went up. They did not go down. So as he further finishes this, you'll see his shoulders like turn out, and he's got a big separation, especially in the left compared to the right. And I don't remember exactly if it was a left shoulder or right shoulder issue. All I know is they're not symmetrical, right? The one thing about the human body and my simple approach is we have to be algebra, meaning, as we know, the first rule of algebra is that one side of the equation has got to equal the other. So right now we definitely have a problem here with that movement. And this is a concentric movement. So there are three types of muscle contractions. There's isometric. I'm pushing against something that doesn't move. My muscle iso means stay the same length. There is concentric. I'm at the beach doing a shortening of the muscle. All right, that's concentric. A lot of people, when they do bicep curls for their beach muscles, that's a concentric movement. And then there's eccentric. Eccentric, the muscles have to come together and lengthen at the same time. Eccentric could be a very close synonym for the word deceleration. As I begin to lower my body, okay, that's a eccentric or deceleratory movement. No one ever gets hurt jumping up for the rebound. It's on the way down. So as this gentleman is coming down, you're going to see, that left shoulder blade begin to wing. He can't even maintain equal deceleration patterns. Right now, his left arm is decelerating faster. You can see they're not even at the same length. And he's got right here, you're going to see now we've got our base, the spine now gets into some sort of scoliotic movement just from this simple thing. So here's a guy. So I can tell you this gentleman's name is Mike. He is an endurance sport athlete, like ultra marathons, those Tough Mudder things. The guy is very, very, very athletic. But at his base, his initial sequence, his first pillar of movement, he doesn't have. So if I remember correctly, he's suffering, from shoulder impingement and I think a little bit of thoracic outlet syndrome. So basically that first pillar of movement is wrong. And just like the foundation of a house, if the foundation of the house is wrong, or the first Lego block is wrong, nothing else on top of that is ever going to be correct because the first one is wrong. All right. So if any questions on that, please feel free to drop that in the chat. All right, so moving on. The next is the squat, the S word. I want to say it's a 4-letter word around my office, but it's 5. But I did go to Northeastern where the N stands for knowledge. But everyone hates the squat. Okay. But it's the most important movement of the lower body and the spine. It's the most poorly performed movement, and it's most poorly instructed or taught movement. The squat depends on movements of the spine, the hips, the knees, the pelvis, the glute, the feet, all to be in a precise ratio of movement. And if anyone has children, currently have children, or has ever seen children, watch them when they are between the ages of 2 and 5. Pick something up from the ground. If you want to learn how to do a squat, video that, because they move perfectly, because they're really, the body is laying down neurological blocks of movement, and you'll see them, diaper to heels every single time. But as we get older, we start to bend at the waist and things happen. Now, A couple points we talk about the squat, the muscles that are involved, the back extensors, okay, our lower back right below our belt. We have a inward curve of your back. The inward curve is called a lordosis. Okay, that is an incredibly important principle. All right. Years gone back in other countries, people have traveled hundreds of miles holding things on their head, tremendous amount of weight walking. Okay, because the spine is able to bear that weight with its three natural curves, two inward curves at the neck and the low back called lordotic, and one outward curve where our shoulder blades are called a kyphosis. Okay, when we take this unbelievable structure, this unbelievable thing to bear weight with our spine and change it, we're asking for trouble. Now we need muscles to hold us into place, and we can't be what's called skeletally locked. Like my spine is locked in a in a movement pattern and stays there. So the biggest thing that I see when someone, two big things. One, immediately when someone does a squat, that lordosis goes out the window. Probably this summer in my practice alone, I've seen 15 adolescent boys come into the clinic telling me they can, squat the world. I do a test, which I'll show, which, I kind of push them over with one finger, and then they kind of understand the importance of mechanics. And every single movement is they have lost that lordosis of their back. Okay. So the muscles involve back extensors, glutes. Believe it or not, we have three. We have one big glute. There's like your gluteus maximus, your gluteus minimus, and your gluteus medius. But as far as our gluteus maximus, there's actually really kind of three parts. We have an upper, a middle, and a lower. When I tell people to do just a simple glute squeeze, the first time they do it is really at the bottom of the glute where their hamstring innervates and helps the glute to make a contraction. And that's really opposite of what should happen. It should start at the top and work its way down. And I'll talk about that movement in the next slide. So the glutes, ultra important muscle. The hamstrings, pelvic floor, and quads. Okay. So I've heard I can't do a squat because I got bad quads or I've got a bad knee. Okay, great. But the squat is not a knee exercise. If you've made it a knee exercise, you're doing it incorrectly. So I have for those who know me, I'm in the long process of finishing a book, but I have a one whole chapter dedicated to the worst advice in human history that if we put a dollar figure on it, I think would solve our debt. Okay. And that is to bend your knees first. All right. We got to lift up something heavy, bend your knees. It's going to snow 2 feet out there. When you lift up, when you're shoveling, make sure you bend your knees first. You lift the couch up, make sure you bend your knees first. Get into the batter's box, bend your knees. Get into your golf posture, bend your knees first. So we do that. We skip our pelvic muscle, right? And we get out of sequence. I'm going to explain that sequence, like I said, in the next slide. But the squat, the muscle that we hone in on, if we reach behind us and feel our butt and we just go down a little bit and where our glute and our hamstring meet, that juncture right there, that is the muscle that the squat is training, that hamstring glute juncture, as well as the back extensors. If you're feeling your squat in your quads, you are doing it wrong. So a little tidbit on that. Okay, so moving on. We got Mike back here, again, going over my squat test from my game test, all right? So I've really never seen anyone do a squat correctly without correction. Like I said, it's very poorly taught. Even trainers teach it wrong. Even physical therapists teach it wrong. And Movement is very simple. There's only one way to do it. It's like math. It's only one right answer. There's only one way to do it, and everything else is wrong. So as we start this movement here, we're doing pretty good with the technology here. Okay. So what we're looking for with the squat is the initial center. So kind of where his shirt meets his green Celtic shorts to translate backwards first. And we have that. But if we look at the trampoline behind him and we look at that yellow ball or even the bar above it, he's translating backwards, but he's actually not moving down. He's staying the same height, and arguably, he's even getting higher. So that's going to result in now. I know this graphics in the way, but his toes are popping up, and as he goes down, you can see from this position that pretty much a stiff wind would knock him backwards. All right. So he has weakness of his glutes. He's lost his lordotic curve. He's literally almost falling backwards. And like I said, this guy is an athlete, endurance athlete that's running and jumping and really depends on his glutes, hamstrings to slow down. And he doesn't have them. So this basic movement of a squat is incorrect. And when he goes all the way down, I think he repeats it. So a little steeper here, but you could see number one. So for me grading this test, he's lost his lordosis. We're shrugging to hold on so he doesn't fall backwards. I mean, his femur, this bone here, needs to get somewhat to parallel. It doesn't even come close. So believe it or not, this endurance athlete, I would keep off the field until we fix this squat because he's going to injure himself. All right. Okay. Now, the third one is walking. That's right, walking. What I mean by that, I want you guys to close your eyes and think back to the very first picture that you have of yourself. The very, 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 very first one. No, not the one where you're swaddled, back about 9 months. That would be the picture of your ultrasound. And in that picture, we have a head and a spinal cord. And our arms and legs grow on after. I have a kind of a mean joke here, but you see the guy at our doorstep, Matt. I use this analogy because I know it's kind of a cruel joke, but it hammers home, right? The guy with no arms and no legs. So if I had prosthetics for arms and legs, how do I get them to move? Okay, the movement has to start at the spinal cord and move proximal, meaning as close to our spine out to distal. Okay, so I'm doing a lat pull down. Okay, the movement has to start with my shoulder blades depressing and my hands moving last. That's moving proximal to distal. So when I talk about walking is if I am turned north and the kitchen is east and you say food, go, my body would immediately turn at the spine and then move in that direction. But when we get into lazy or we get trying to, the body's always trying to cheat, we begin to get out of that principle of moving from the spine first. So in this video, next one, this is a kid I worked with about 15 years ago. He's I think he made as high as AAA. All right, baseball player. Now, I do a lot of work with baseball, but I know we're showing a guy hitting to simulate walking. So what do I mean by that? Well, assuming kind of right at this grade green pillar here is if the ball was right there, right where my cursor is, that's essentially where you'd want to make contact. So, or I'm swinging an axe, or I'm doing something or someone's attacking me. I gotta knock them over. So somewhere there is where all my power's got to be behind. So I'm going to get this video going, and you're going to see what happens when we do not move from our center and we violate that principle. Okay, so let's keep an eye on his shorts. Okay. Okay, so what did you guys see? Maybe you're like, Kevin, I have no idea what I just saw there. So let's rewind this. So when he plants his front foot, now instead of rotating, he's drifting. So his first move isn't to turn, it's to drift. So he's gone from, if we look at the bulletin board, the cork board on the wall back there, he's gone from one end of it to the other end of it with not turning his spine. So now he's out of sequence. So when he does turn his spine, what does he have out here in the hitting zone where our green pad is? A little flick. That's all he has. He can't even knock a ball off a tee. He's got no power because he has moved distal. Okay. Once his foot hits the ground, instead of turning at the spine, he's drifted just that movement there and has nothing to move. So that's what I mean about moving proximal to distal. And that is the third pillar, probably the most important one of the math of moving proximal to distal. But just that little movement has set the body up for failure. Okay. And people will, if you've seen some of my testimonial, you'll say, Kevin taught me how to walk again. Well, essentially, yeah, I kind of rerouted the body to move from center out. That is very, very important. Okay, what's happening with my slide here? Okay. So, to review, scapular depression, the squat and walking, or moving from our center or moving from our spine or rotating. Those are the three pillars of movement that apply whether you're grandmother, LeBron James, Superman. We have to move from those three movements are the building blocks or pillars or bricks or whatever we want to talk about. And that is how my application, if you've worked with me, as you know, to correct everybody, is to establish those three bricks of movement. So many people come into me and say, hey, I've been to physical therapy. Would you get better? Well, yeah. I'm like, well, let me ask you this question. You hired, Certa painters, and when you came home, only 3/4 of your house was painted. Would that be acceptable? Of course it wouldn't be acceptable. And what I have seen, not to put down my brothers and sisters in the industry, but what I have seen is the basic movement has not been addressed. Whether I apply the same formula, for those who don't know, my practice is basically split in half. I have active adults and I have high-level baseball pitchers and players. I apply the same exact formula. They all have to do the exact same movement. Every pitcher who comes in can't do a squat, shoulder shrugs, and doesn't turn their spine enough. Same thing with every active adult, because it's the first set of movements. We've all, got a Lego set, opened it up, flew through it, got to page 7 and realized, I screwed up on page 1. And the whole model's wrong. It all has to come apart. Same thing. So I want to know if you know any of these people. The shrugger, shoulder shruggers anonymous. I mean, how many people are walking the earth looking like this? So when these three pillars are out, neck, back, shoulder, foot, knee pain, all possible. Headaches, TMJ, vertigo. Okay. Don't like stairs, hate standing. All issues of these movements are out of whack. I have walk like an Egyptian. I'm not really sure if there's water buffaloes in Egypt, but there was a song, Walk Like an Egyptian. But what I mean by that is when you come home and you land on the hardwood floor, does the house shake? All right, that's a deceleratory issue. The correction, a poor squat. That's what the root of all evil is from. Are you getting slower? No endurance, no energy. Your body is designed to move. When its basic movements are out, it has to circumvent that. It has to do all these compensatory movements to just move. And that takes energy, depletes the body of energy, makes you slower and all that kind of stuff, just from those three pillars of movement. So proper movement is the key to health. MSK stands for musculoskeletal, and don't ask me to spell that. All right. So I want you to think with these three things. Is your body an investment algorithm? Now, what does that mean? Well, I kind of tell people every time you move correctly, we put $1 in the bank. Dollar, 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 dollar. Every time you move bad, we withdraw $500. The days of doing things, one of the reasons other people aren't getting better, the days of, here these exercises, go do them 10 times. No one in my practice has ever done something 10 times. You're never going to change a habit, a movement, in 10 reps, maybe 10,000, maybe 1,000. All right. So we've got to put all of these dollars into the bank and move good just to stop one bad movement. Dental plan. The dentist, man, they have it down. Why? Everyone knows. We go to the dentist twice a year. We brush our teeth twice a day. Why? Because we only get one set of teeth. Well, we only get one musculoskeletal system too, but we don't seem to take as good of care of that until something happens. Now, I know we're in a world where essentially the medical world doesn't go into effect until something happens, but I am a concierge level practice where we're free of insurance restrictions, so I can actually help people better. And one of the ways of doing that is helping them prevent injury, not even getting there. So I definitely can fix you when you're injured. Imagine what I can do when you're healthy. So think with that. So I got some pictures of some satisfied clients. So you did not come on here for not. If you are I'll leave you at this. All physical therapy is certainly not the same, but I'm sure everyone's done during COVID, sat through a webinar. And at the end, there's always a big whatever offer. Well, my offer is pretty simple. If you've seen this webinar, you know somebody, you want to come in, I'm going to give away essentially to come and see me free. Come in the first time and I will see you, give you my 2 cents as to what I think's going on. I've shared my screen again. This little link here, I've actually put it in the chat, brings you to this page, which is my client portal. So if you're already signed up, you can just click on this and you sign in and you can request an appointment. And I'm going to show you what the appointment is in a second. Or we can go into here and we're a new person. And what we're going to select, I just put it in here somewhere. Where is it there? Okay. No, maybe it's not even showing up. Well, it will say, I will add it here that it will be an appointment where you're selecting, it will say from webinar, but literally select anything here to get the ball rolling. I will fix it before you come in. But that's how you can come and work with me. So I can work both at the brick and mortar and certainly through the power of this thing called the internet, we can work remotely. I actually have baseball clients, pitching clients, believe it or not, around the whole country. So thank you for listening. If anyone has any questions, they can unmute themselves. If they want to speak up, they can drop it in the chat. I don't want to jump off if someone's got any questions, but that would be the time to do that now. So I'm going to, like I said, have this recorded. If anybody wants a recording, you can email me. Okay. Very easy, my email. I'll put that in the chat. Let's do that right now. So it's Dr. Kmac, DRKMAC at perfectmotionsportstherapy.com. Okay. You can also text me. All right. The main number of the office, text or call 978-651-1812. And we can just jump on a call and talk about what you may or may not have going on. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and have a great rest of the week.